Welcome to A Matter of Perspective with Judge Derwin Webb. I am Judge Derwin Webb, coming to you from the Fraser History Museum. You know, sometimes you get an opportunity to speak to somebody that is kind of living your dream, doing the things that you thought you could have been doing or wanted to do. We have a special guest with us today, none other than the owner of the J. Wagner Group, Mr. Joey Wagner. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Derwin. Good to see you, man.
Man, it's good to see you, man. It's been a long time. I know COVID has been interrupting a lot of our get-togethers, but, man, it's great to see you. It sounds like you've been doing some big things.
Yeah, man. I mean, obviously, we've been friends for a long time, so whenever you can start to see people you haven't seen in a while, it's always good to get back. But
see the whole face instead.
See the whole face, or not on a Zoom, or not on a FaceTime call, but yeah, life's good, man. It's been a little crazy. We're on a roller coaster, but glad to be kind of somewhat back to normal.
Yeah, I've been following you a lot, man. It seems like you've been opening up some things and doing some interesting things. We met a long time ago.
Yeah, long time ago.
You were doing a lot of different things. You know, I ask people about guests before they come on, and someone told me that if you need someone to get something done, he's the guy you call. Or I had another guy that went to high school with you.
Okay.
Said that I knew he was going to be, so I didn't know what it was going to be, but it was going to be something. And he's doing it now. So you have a lot of people that are interested in the things that you do, a lot of people that follow you. I look at your social media accounts. You have a lot of followers there as well. How did it get started? I know you're from Louisville. Tell me about it.
Yeah, long story short, you know, born and raised here in Louisville, Kentucky. Grew up in Fern Creek, where my parents still live to this day. Went to Fern Creek Elementary, Newburgh Middle, Fern Creek High School, JCPS kid. When I graduated from Fern Creek, went and played baseball at Morehead State University. So obviously, you know, becoming a Division I athlete was something that I had a goal for a long time, and I love baseball. And ended up choosing Morehead over a bunch of other schools just because that's where my dad went, and it just felt right. I just loved it when I went there for my visit, and went to Morehead 4 years, graduated, got my undergraduate in communications, and then the athletic director at the time, Brian Hutchinson, asked me if I wanted to stay and work in the athletic department as a GA, and they'd pay for my master's. So I was like, yeah, be in college another year and a half, get to learn in the business of sports and marketing, and stayed there for another year and a half, got my master's degree in sports marketing, and then moved back to Louisville. And when I moved back to Louisville, you know, my mom and dad were like, hey, you can live with us, but save some money, but you got to go get a job. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. You know, obviously I love the event side that I kind of did some stuff in college, and I love the marketing stuff and the sports, but there really wasn't, like, at that time, like, big event planning jobs, or, you know, we didn't have really any big pro sports in Louisville at the time. So I was like, I just got to get a job. Knew a couple buddies that were working in the banking industry and mortgage industry.
Let me stop you for a second.
Yeah.
Did you ever consider leaving?
Not at the time, just because being born and raised in Louisville, I had so many friends here and my family here, and it was just an opportunity to come home. I just wanted to be back in Louisville. So literally my first job out of college was working at a mortgage company, and I hated it. Like, it was awful. Like, you know, you're like there 8 to 5 or whatever, and, you know, it's like a hustle, man, trying to close loans, and I just didn't like it. I mean, I love that I learned that side of the business, like down the road when I went and bought my own house, and I knew that side of the business, so that was good on getting a mortgage. But I knew I wanted to do something with events, and I knew I wanted to do something with marketing. And so literally, a bunch of my buddies, we started going out to some bars and clubs in town, and one of the ones that we really, really liked was the Blue Martini. I don't remember if you remember that spot in the Highlands down there on, like, Barshon and Baxter. And I mean, I'll never forget, I walked in on, like, a day they were closed, and like I don't know, Tuesday or Wednesday, and I asked for the manager, and they were like, who are you? And I was like, hey, I'm Joey Wagner. You know, I'm a promoter, right? You know, I'm really hadn't been a promoter yet, but I was like, hey, you know, we do events, and, you know, I wanted to see what your worst night of the week was. And he was like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, well, we want to throw a party, you know. And he was like, well, how much do I have to pay you? And I was like, you don't have to pay me anything, right? Let's give us a drink tab. We want to show you what we can do, and then we'll kind of go from there. So for about 4 weeks, me and my boys, man, we just hit the streets. And back in the day, like, there was something to do every single night in Louisville, right? It was like Sunday was Have a Nice Day, Monday was Blue Martini, Tuesday was Have a Nice Day, Wednesday was Bar Louisville, Thursday was another bar, Friday was the Highlands, or Saturday, once 4th Street Live came around, kind of went to there. So that we had somewhere to go every single night, right? So we just went out every night, started meeting the girls and meeting guys, and just like, hey, we're doing this party at the Blue Martini, and we hit it hard for about 4 weeks. And this was pre-social media, right? So we were handing out flyers and handing out free passes and putting flyers on cars and just kind of guerrilla marketing. And 4 weeks later, we did our first event at Blue Martini on a Thursday and had like 600 people there, and like sold it out. And the owner was like, what other nights do you want? And we were like, well, we'll start helping with Friday and Saturday. And then the same company kind of owned Bar Louisville and Blue Martini and Have a Nice Day Cafe. So we kind of started helping them for a while, and we started throwing big parties. And then Derby came around, and I was good friends with some NFL players and some celebrities. And they were like, hey, what are we doing for Derby? And I was like, well, we're doing a party at the Blue Martini. Start coming. And that kind of started my whole like celebrity event side at Derby, and kept growing and growing and growing on the events. Well, when that started happening, we started catching wind. Like a lot of the other bars and clubs and restaurants and liquor brands and beer brands, they started calling us going, hey, how do we be a part of your events? Like, do you want to do an event here? And the biggest brand that contacted was Jillian's. So Jillian's, which was like,
right.
You remember, so it was like kind of like the first ever Dave & Buster's before there was Dave & Buster's. It was like super cool restaurant, pool hall, games, concert hall in the basement with Atlas. But what a lot of people don't know is that like the internet or like world headquarters was in Louisville, Kentucky for all the Jillian's all over the country. And there was like 40 locations, right? So I'll never forget, Dan Smith was the CEO, Eric Sanford was the vice president of marketing, and Bobby Burke, who's really still to this day one of my good friends and mentors, was the VP of promotions. And they were like, hey man, we've been hearing about your events. We'd love to talk to you about doing some stuff at Jillian's. And then they were like, hey, we would love to offer you a full-time job. So I was like, oh, I get to get out of the mortgage business. Like, all right, what do you want me to do? And they were like, well, we want to pay you to be like a marketing coordinator. So basically my 9 to 5 was literally, back in the day, you'd walk into a bar and you'd drop your business card in a fishbowl, right? Well, I would literally pull those business cards out every single day, call those people and offer them like VIP parties, like for happy hour and stuff like that. That was my 9 to 5. But then at night, they were like, you can throw parties at Atlas. So I was like, all right. So I was like, I'm making money during the day, making money at night. So then I started making some really good money. But I also started to learn, like Bobby and Eric and Dan were 3 of the most, talented people I ever met in the entertainment industry. And they just started teaching me their ways and the roles and how to do sponsorships and how to put together events. And I just started learning and learning and learning. And then they had all these other locations across the country. So they started taking me to other cities, Boston, Charlotte, Atlanta, and helping them with events down there. And then Derby every year, Jillian's, they had that big parking lot right there in the Highlands. So they were doing massive concerts, and we were doing concerts, and we were doing Stuff magazine parties, and more celebrities were coming, and I was becoming friends with them because I was the guy taking care of them, right? Making sure they had a table.
Everybody needs a guy.
I always say I'm the plug's plug, right? Like, everybody's got to have a plug, but I'm your plug's plug, and that's how it works, right? It's a building a big network. And I did that at Jillian's for a while, and I had a great run there. And then Stephen Foster, that actually created Jillian's, he called me and was like, hey, you've done a great job for our company for 5 or 6 years. Like, I'm getting ready to open up 2 new concepts at this new street downtown called 4th Street Live, called Lucky Strike and Felt, and I want you to run them. So, I left Jillian's, went to go work for him down there at 4th Street, and kind of my same deal. It was like, hey, I'll be a manager and run it during the day, but at night, I want to do events and I want to do parties so I can make more money, right? And we did that for a while. And then finally, I kind of got that philosophy like, all right, well, I'm making all these bars, restaurant, and clubs, all this money. Maybe I should go do it on my own. So that's when I opened up Prime Lounge, which, you remember back on Main Street. Right. And we had a good run there. And, it was like a good decision, a bad decision. I made a lot of money, lost a lot of money. Owning a bar, it was not easy, right? But I learned a lot, and it helped me to where I am today, especially on the event side, like learning how to do budgets, learning how to do P&Ls, learning how to do payroll, learning how to deal with staff, learning how to do liquor orders. So owning my own spot made me learn a lot of those things. But outside of like learning the business side, I was starting to build this little like personal brand, right? Like, everybody calls me J-Dub. So it was like, oh, this J-Dub name kept getting everywhere on doing stuff. So then like a lot of the brands started wanting me to like talk about their brands and their events. And it was kind of before influencer marketing was really influencer marketing. We were trying to like start working with brands like that. So just started building my own little personal brand. And over then, I had still kind of had this company that was like an entertainment company and like a marketing company that started as J-Dub Entertainment and has rolled into now what is the J. Wagner Group, our full service agency 22 years later. And it's been crazy to see how far we came, man, from me DJing parties in college, right, to make some money to now producing events for Fortune 100 companies. It's humbling to say the least, but it's been awesome because I know how hard I've worked and to see how everything's paid off.
I think I was on a flight to LA. You happen to be going out that way too.
Yeah.
So we got a chance to talk a little bit there. So things were rolling.
Yeah.
Like things usually do. Something happens. COVID hits.
Yeah.
Tell me about how COVID actually affected your business.
At that point, I'll never forget in January of 2019 or whenever COVID was, the January before COVID really went crazy. I hired another employee at J. Wagner Group, and we were growing, we were rolling as the agency, and I made a big decision in that January before COVID and went full agency at J. Wagner Group, and that means having everything in house, right? We'd always kind of been this event marketing company, but when we went full agency, we brought everything in house, meaning we have an event division, we have a marketing division, we have a public relations division, we have a multimedia division. So on our event side, we do everything from our own events to producing other people's events. On the marketing side, we do everything from social media marketing, social media management, digital marketing, graphic design, web design, SEO, data, anything on marketing on that. Then on the public relations side, your traditional PR, press releases, press conferences, crisis communications. And then on the multimedia side, we started our own video company called Silent Wolf Productions that was more of like me having all that in-house. So instead of me spending money outsourcing that with vendors, we went and found some of the most talented people in the city, hired them full-time, brought them all in-house, and just went full steam ahead launching this agency in January. March comes, COVID hits. And you're like, oh man, what are we going to do? And, I think anybody that knows me really well knows that I'm a outside the box kind of dude. And like, I try to pivot anytime I can and just figure out when there's a problem. And I don't, if there's ever a problem, I don't like get upset and cry about the problem. I'm like, well, if there's a problem, how do we fix it? And how do we move forward? Right. And that's how I built my brands in these companies. So when COVID hit, I'm like, okay, we know we're going to lose one division, the event division. We can't do events. We know we're going to lose Derby, right? Because when at first we didn't know we were going to lose Derby, right? They were like, oh, we're going to postpone it till September. So we were like, all right, we might lose a little bit of our Derby business, which is a huge business for us now. And then I was
that
like,
your biggest client at the time?
on the events in the Derby is probably where we made a majority, of a lot of our money. So then we were like, all right, well, how can we think outside the box? And we literally started thinking about, okay, all these events that we do for people, especially in that we do a lot of events for nonprofits, and they depend on these events, right, to pay for their budgets and their P&Ls and their staff and their team, and they're going to want to continue to do that. So we had this software for a while on like virtual events, but we really had never needed to do virtual events because everybody was doing real events. So we were like, hey, what if we launched like a virtual event division and try to help people take their actual event that they had and move it online. So we came out with a big press release on Business First, and we actually ended up doing our first ever virtual event called Derby Delayed during the Derby weekend. And we basically turned it into a fundraiser for the service industry crowd, the bartenders, the servers, the hostesses, the people that were getting crushed during COVID. I was like, I want to help them. Those are all my friends, right? So we put together this like online, you went to Derby VIP or derbydelay.com, you watched it online. It was a fundraiser. I had K-Dog DJing. We were doing giveaways. We were just trying to raise money and just try to make a difference. And, Business First did a big article about that, about us doing an online event and launching this virtual division. And then my phone started ringing like, hey, how can you help us? How can you take our event virtual? So that, it obviously didn't make us as much money as we did on normal events, but like it helped fill the void during COVID, right? And then, obviously in September, Derby came around and no fans. So obviously that hurt, not having our normal hospitality that we have through derbyvip.com, one of our concierge services. So it's like, that hurt. But over those months, my staff and I just continued to get creative, and we started really just kind of going after a bunch of clients that were excelling during COVID, medical companies and, hospitals and just different brands that were, flourishing during COVID. And we really grew during COVID. I actually hired more employees during COVID. We got more clients that needed help with social media management. The digital marketing side grew for us because when people during COVID, they were on their phones and their laptops. So a lot of these businesses switched a lot of their traditional advertising budget over to digital, and it just for us, it grew. And so God was good to me, man, during COVID. And while a lot of companies were going under and letting people go, like we were actually growing and hiring people. So, but it's finally coming back to the swing of things where we're starting to do events again. But obviously now we're dealing with a lot of these Delta variant stuff, and so it's still up in the air. But no, it was COVID was difficult, mentally and physically for me, just because owning a business and trying to figure it out. And I know you pay attention to my social. My best friend Chris Beatty from Indy was murdered, up in Indianapolis, and that May after COVID, and he literally just walked outside during the protest up in Indy to get a charger out of his car, and there was 2 girls getting robbed, and he tried to help them, and they smoked him. And so I really struggled with that, the the mental toughness and the middle side is real, man. I mean, there was days I didn't want to get out of bed, because you couldn't go to my office, and I'm a person that likes to be out, right? I don't like staying at the house. So, staying at the house because we couldn't leave because of COVID, and then you got your friend that gets killed. Like, man, I struggled with that for a while, like mentally, on the mental side. But I knew that at some point, like BD would be like, man, you got to shake that off. You got to get out of the funk, and you got to do what you've always been doing and continuing to grow brands and help people and give back to the community. And don't worry about me, man. Like, I'm going to be good in heaven. So it's like, it finally just one day it clicked, and I just kind of just said, you know what, we're going to keep rolling. And that's what we've done.
Biggest lesson you learned during COVID?
The biggest lesson I learned even more is how important family is, man. Like, me being home, all day with my wife and my kids, like, I loved that. It learned, like, a lot of times, we all get busy with work, right? And we let work sometimes, get in and get away in the family because we get so busy, and we always say we're so busy. And, a lot of us, when you have kids, it's funny, I tell my wife all the time, we're like unpaid Uber drivers, right? We're driving our kids everywhere and all that. But, like, I think the biggest lesson I learned was just to cherish those moments with your friends and your family, because I got to spend so much time with them, right? And then when Chris died, it was like, people are here today, gone tomorrow, right? So just more of like just cherishing those memories with people. And, you're in the house for 4 or 5 months, and you're getting to, help your son with homework or help your daughter with homework on stuff that I normally don't get to do, right? Mm-hmm. And that just kind of just made me really learn that just cherish those moments because they could be gone tomorrow.
Let's pivot a little bit.
Yep.
NCAA comes out with this new rule allowing athletes to profit off of their name, image, and likeness.
Yep.
Something that I would have loved when I was a student athlete.
You would have got paid. I would have got you paid.
By a book company, probably. But anyway, you saw that as an opportunity. Tell me what you're doing now, and tell me where you think things are going in the future for this.
Yeah, so obviously, once again, thinking outside the box and pivoting. We've done sports marketing for 20 years in the city, and not just here in Louisville, like all over the country. I mean, obviously, I knew at some point with having a master's in sports marketing, it's going to be a dream of mine to have my own sports marketing company. I just didn't know when. We've always done sports marketing at Wagner Group, but we've got a lot of anchor brands now that we work with, from Kentucky Derby, Churchill Downs, the Breeders' Cup, Racing Louisville, Louisville City FC, the Women's Cup, U of L Athletics for the past 10 years. I knew at some point I wanted to launch a sports marketing agency, which we just did. And then obviously over the past 2 years, when NIL started coming out, being a former Division I athlete, it intrigued me, right? Mm-hmm. Because I was like, man, I went to a small school at Moorhead, but I knew how to do business and hustle. Like, I probably could have made some good money when I was in college. Like, that kind of intrigued me. And then with obviously with us representing a lot of major brands in this city, and us being an agency now, controlling marketing budgets and seeing where some of these brands spend their money in influencer marketing, I'm like, man, I think I can really help these kids, right? So we launched Rocketeer Sports, which is our sports marketing agency, on July 1st, on the day it went live. Mm-hmm. Just being honest on the backstory, man, I really wasn't sure about 48 hours before July 1st if I was even going to be able to do this. U of L helped me out a lot, but I do a lot with U of L, so I had a lot of conflict of interest out there. And the biggest one, which I was a little bit more disappointed about, is that I'm labeled a booster, right, at U of L. But it wasn't because I donate a ton of money to U of L. I don't do that. Like, I have season football tickets, mm-hmm. and basically I have like you give a gift on top of that per seat or whatever, through J. Wagner Group, and we pay for those season tickets every year, and we use them, or I give them to clients, or I give them to friends, and the NCAA labels that as a booster, right? So my argument was with compliance in U of L. And they've been amazing. U of L's compliance department and marketing department and events are some of the best in the business, right? Mm-hmm. And they've been good to me, and they've been a huge help in launching this company on just more of the education piece. But basically, the NCAA says if you had season football tickets from 2000 to 2005, and now it's 2021, you're still a booster for the rest of your life. It's dumb. It's the stupidest rules ever, right? And there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
Right. But, my argument was, like, you're going to penalize me on someone that's really trying to help these kids and mentor these kids and do the right thing for these kids and not let them get screwed over and hustled by people, because that's out there, right? Because I have season football tickets. And, obviously 48 hours before, U of L, they helped me out. And, basically, because of the rules and stuff, I kind of got cleared as a booster because it was just season football tickets. I don't donate, six-figure check a year is just football tickets, right? So that was the biggest thing. But I was a professor at U of L. I teach event planning. I had to give that up. I've emceed the U of L men's basketball games for 10 years. I had to give that up. And then obviously I do a lot of like marketing kind of stuff with U of L athletics, and I had to give all that up. So basically I had to have pretty much cut all my ties with U of L to be able to help these athletes. But I knew that was something deep in my heart that I had passion about, that I wanted to do. And, and as the older I've got, those three things, from teaching and emceeing the games and doing other stuff with the other, took up a lot of time, right? So I wanted to really just kind of to see where I could help these kids and really make a difference. And we've been on the ground running ever since.
Well, I know you're not quite a month in yet. Tell me how things are going. Tell me about your clients now.
Yeah, things are great.
Can you even talk about your clients?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, obviously we put it out there on social media and my personal social media. And, the first athlete that I signed that was really I was excited about was CJ Avery, who's led the football team in tackles the last 3 years, senior on the football team, came back for another year, captain on the football team. And I didn't really know CJ that well. I'd met him a few times just kind of in passing, but I did my research on a lot of these kids, before we kind of started, because U of L can't, part of the rules is U of L can't introduce me to any of these kids, and I'm friends with all the coaches over there and they can't introduce me. And so that's fine. So it's a lot of getting their cells or DMing them and we got to reach out directly to them. So I just hit up CJ and was like, hey man, I'd love to talk to you about NIL. And he came to my office and, I asked him a bunch of questions and, what he thought about it. And he was like, man, I'd love for you to talk to my mom and dad about it. And we got on the phone with his mom and dad a couple hours later and kind of sold them, our philosophy. And here's my philosophy. And it's a 3-part system, and then we'll get into the rest of the athletes. We're trying to help these athletes in 3 different ways. Number 1 is the education side, right? That's the most important side. Because at the end of the day, they're at the university for 2 things. 1, to be a student, and 2, to be an athlete. So they're a student athlete first, no matter what, right? NLI comes last. So the education piece is 1, U of L does an amazing job, or these universities do an amazing job on helping them with the education on the rules of NIL, the compliance side, what they can do, what they can't do, right? But we're there to be kind of a second layer of that. Like, hey, I know you know the rules, but I'm reminding you what the rules are. This is what we can do. This is what we can't do. Hey, if I get you a deal, you can't wear any Louisville gear. You can't show up with clothes with other brands on if we're going to put it a picture, an advertisement. Like, it's little things like that we're trying to help them on the education side. Because number 1, if they don't do that, they're going to become ineligible. That's the ultimate goal. We can't let happen, right? And a lot of these kids that aren't signing with someone like me or a mentor or an advisor or whatever, they're going to get in trouble because they're probably going to mess up on, imagine sending a legal contract to an 18-year-old kid that has no one helping him, right? These coaches can't even help them read the contracts, right? So the education piece is number 1. Then the second side of the education piece is more of teaching them the business side, right? All of our guys and all of our girls that we're helping, we're setting them up with an LLC. They're a business now. They're a brand, right? So we've got our law firm, Goldberg Simpson, that's helping us set up all of our athletes with their own LLC. Where, hey, CJ and Sam, who's your bank? Oh, we work with Chase. All right, I've got a lot of friends at Chase. Call Chase, help them set up their business bank account and get them their tax ID and their bank account. We've got a CPA on staff. We've got the lawyer on staff. We've got the financial guy on staff. So we've been building this dream team to be able to help these kids make the right decisions with their money. Oh, you got to hold back 33% of taxes. Like some of these kids don't know that stuff. So we're here to be like a liaison them through that first pillar of education. We can't even get to the second pillar unless they know number 1, right? Second pillar is helping them with their brand, right? I throw the word marketing out anymore. I don't do marketing. I do brand elevation, right? I'm here to help elevate your brand from here to here. And it's the same thing with these kids now. They're a brand. They're a business now. So we're going to teach them on how to elevate their brand from, making sure that the graphics that they put on their social media are cleaner and better. And, they've got graphic design and a logo and a possible website and pictures are clean and just everything they're putting in on their social media to promote themselves. It just looks really good and clean and aesthetic on the branding side, right? So helping them grow their brand is the second side. The third side is the business side on how they can make money. And there's a couple different ways, right? The normal things that everybody's heard, a brand can call an athlete, offer them money now. They do a commercial, they do a Instagram shout out, they do all those things. Those are work. They can do football camps, basketball camps, they can do autograph signings. Like those are all the norm, typical, the deals that are happening right now. Where I like to think with these kids now is I'm thinking backwards. Yeah, we want to get you paid and we want to get you money up front, but I'm having every single one of our athletes make me a list of every single thing they're spending money on per month. Walk around your dorm room. What are you spending your money on? You know, deodorant, hair gel, lotion, food, drinks, whatever. All right, make that list, and then we're going to start going to those brands you love and say, hey, CJ Avery loves Dove soap. Hey, Dove soap, can you take care of him? Because when you start taking those line items away from these kids, guess what? You're saving them money, which in return is the same thing of getting them paid. So just learning on that side. So those are the three pillars: education, the branding and marketing, and then getting them the deals, right? So we've got CJ Avery, one of the best football players. We've got Samuel Williamson, one of the best basketball players. We just signed Hope Savory, who's from Mercy. He's the freshman point guard phenom at Western Kentucky. She was Conference USA Player of the Year. We've got Milton Wright. We're actually announcing that tomorrow, so giving it to you first.
All right.
So Milton played at Cal. He's at Purdue.
I used to coach him.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so we just signed Milton, so super excited about that. I haven't even met him yet, so we've literally talked over the phone, and we've got a bunch of great friends. My good buddy Aaron Hill, who's a basketball coach at Cal, helped me with Milton. So I'm actually having lunch with Milton tomorrow, and we've got like 3 or 4 athletes that we're in talks to at U of L and some other schools that we're going to hopefully have signing here in the next couple weeks.
Quick question. What do you say to the person that says to you that NIL is going to destroy college athletics?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't see it destroying college athletics. I think it's going to be able to give these athletes an avenue to make some money while playing sports when they can't have a job, right? And some of the touching things that I've been hearing over the past month since we've been helping these kids is that a lot of these kids don't even want to make the money for them. They want to make the money to send back to home to their mom or their dad to help pay their bills. And so that's the touching part for me, where I want to help them even more. Because for me, it's not about, I'm not going to make a lot of money off these kids in college. It's not about the money, right? It's about mentoring them. It's about guiding them. And if we can take a kid for 4 years while they're in college, help them, make a little bit of money for them, and then when they go pro or they go to the NFL or NBA, they say, you know what? Joey Wagner did a great job for me. He was honest. He had great integrity. He brought me the right deals. When I go pro, I'm going to keep him on board and have him be a part of my marketing team. And that's the ultimate goal for us. I want to find the next Donovan, the next Teddy, the next Lamar. We're going to, right? Louisville's such an amazing, university, and me being here, it's in my backyard. And that's a goal for us. And you got to have goals to set and try to help these kids.
Final question.
Yep.
What's next?
Somebody asked me that the other day, and, I'm a big believer over quality over quantity. I don't want to have 100 athletes. I want to have 8 to 15 athletes that we can really spend a lot of good quality time. Yeah, I don't want to be a sports agent, right? I'm a sports marketing guy. I love sports marketing. Now, I don't deal with the contracts on the agency side, but to continue to help the right kids, right, and see them grow into great student athletes. And I think the bigger picture for me is that there's not always going to be sports. You know that, right? Look, when you're done playing basketball, now you're a judge. It's about helping them build their network too, right, and their connection. So when basketball's over, football's over, or volleyball, they can always call me and say, hey, Joey, I want to move back to Louisville. Can you help me get a job? And that's a big part of it too. And that's what I'm selling to these kids is that, listen, when you're done with sports and you've worked with me and I've got a great network and connections here in this community, and you want to come back here, I'm going to help you. And that's a rewarding thing for me as well.
Man, I want to appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the show.
No, you're welcome.
Anytime I've ever called you, you've always answered the phone, and whatever I ask you to do, you've always done. So I appreciate you, man. Thank you for being true to your word, and I know you're going to do well in this because you've always done well in everything you've done, man.
No, I appreciate that, man.
Man, I wish we had more time.
I have to come back again, right?
No, I got to get you back because I know there's so much more I want to cover. So we'll call this part 1.
There you go. Give us a few months, get some more deals done, and we can fill you in on all those.
We'll get you on the show again, man. Thank you again. And as I close the show, I like to tell all my fans and all my friends out there, doesn't matter what you say, doesn't matter what I think. At the end of the day, it's all a matter of perspective. Thanks for joining us.